I had attended countless emergency sessions of the Galactic Council, but none had begun with silence. Aboard Unity Nexus, the colossal station at the center of the galaxy, representatives from hundreds of civilizations filled the vast circular chamber where matters of war, diplomacy, and survival were decided. Normally, the hall echoed with endless debate. Today, every delegate watched the central platform in uneasy anticipation. The chief minister of the mighty Lyrax Empire stood alone, his normally proud posture weighed down by exhaustion. When he finally spoke, his voice carried across the chamber. Princess Lyra Ashen has disappeared. The announcement sent waves of disbelief through every delegation. As the only heir to the Lyrax throne, her disappearance threatened to shatter an empire that had preserved galactic peace for centuries. A hologram of her destroyed diplomatic shuttle appeared above us, followed by intelligence reports linking the attack to the mysterious Crimson Dominion, a secretive faction rumored to be eliminating royal bloodlines across the galaxy. If Princess Lyra was truly dead, the Lyrax Empire would collapse into civil war, giving the Dominion the perfect opportunity to conquer entire sectors. The fate of the galaxy suddenly rested on the life of one missing princess. The chamber erupted the moment the minister finished speaking. Voices from every corner of the council overlapped in dozens of languages as delegates demanded answers, proposed military responses, and accused one another of negligence. The speaker struggled to restore order, striking his ceremonial staff against the crystal floor until the echoes finally silenced the room. I remained seated, listening. Panic always produced more noise than solutions. Above us, the holographic display shifted from the shattered Lyrax shuttle to a crimson emblem recognized only by intelligence agencies. The Crimson Dominion. Most citizens dismissed it as a conspiracy, but governments knew better. Entire dynasties had quietly vanished over the past 20 years. Kings had died in unexplained accidents. Queens had succumbed to impossible illnesses. Crown princes had disappeared without leaving a single trace. Individually, each tragedy appeared unrelated. Together, they formed a pattern no one wanted to acknowledge. The Dominion was not conquering worlds through war. It was removing the people who held civilizations together. The Lyrax minister continued, his voice steady despite the grief written across his face. Our investigation has uncovered evidence that Princess Lyra's mission was compromised before departure. Someone within the Imperial network leaked her route. A murmur swept through the chamber. Betrayal from within was even more dangerous than an external enemy. If Her Highness has perished, he said, 7 noble houses will immediately claim succession. Each possesses fleets capable of destroying entire sectors. None will willingly yield the throne. Every experienced diplomat understood the consequences. A Lyrax civil war would drag allies and rivals into opposing sides until the conflict consumed half the galaxy. Trade would collapse, border systems would burn, and the Crimson Dominion would inherit victory without firing another shot. Around me, admirals called for mobilization while politicians argued over sanctions and emergency treaties. Everyone believed the crisis would be solved by fleets and weapons. As I watched them, I found myself wondering whether they were preparing for the wrong battle altogether. The debate continued for nearly an hour before anyone noticed the human delegation. That was hardly surprising. Earth had entered galactic politics only a generation ago, long after the ancient empires had drawn their borders and written the laws that governed the stars. Humanity had earned a respectable reputation for disaster relief, evacuation missions, and humanitarian aid in war zones. But those accomplishments were viewed as admirable rather than influential. We were dependable rescuers, not decisive powers. Compared to the vast armadas of the Lyrax Empire or the centuries of political influence wielded by older civilizations, our presence seemed almost symbolic. No one expected humanity to shape the outcome of a crisis capable of tearing the galaxy apart. From my seat near the outer circle of the chamber, I watched admirals project fleet movements across enormous holographic displays while diplomats argued over sanctions, blockades, and emergency alliances. Every proposal relied on military strength. Every calculation assumed the princess was already dead. No one suggested searching for a survivor. No one questioned whether the wreckage truly told the whole story. They were preparing for the aftermath instead of the possibility that history had not yet reached its conclusion. Several delegates glanced toward me only long enough to dismiss my presence. I recognized the expressions. They were not hostile, merely confident. Humans were brave, certainly, resourceful in disasters, surprisingly resilient for such a young species. Yet experience, they believed, belonged to civilizations that had governed star systems for thousands of years. Wisdom came with age, and humanity had not yet lived long enough to possess it. I folded my hands on the polished desk and listened without interruption. The longer the arguments continued, the clearer one truth became. Every civilization in the chamber was trying to preserve an empire. Very few were thinking about preserving a single life. Sometimes those goals were the same, though few leaders ever realized it before it was too late. I waited quietly, knowing my moment to speak was approaching. The speaker finally restored order, and the chamber settled into an uneasy silence. One by one, the delegates lowered their voices, though frustration still lingered in every glance. Fleet commanders waited for authorization to mobilize. Diplomats reviewed emergency treaties. Intelligence officers exchanged encrypted reports. Everyone believed the next decision would determine the fate of the Lyrax Empire. I rose from my seat. The movement itself drew little attention. Humanity occupied one of the outer circles of the council, far from the ancient powers that shaped galactic politics. A few delegates looked in my direction out of courtesy rather than curiosity. Others continued reviewing tactical projections, convinced they already knew how this crisis would unfold. The speaker acknowledged me with a brief nod. The representative from Earth has the floor. I stepped onto the central platform without haste. Hundreds of eyes followed me, though many carried polite indifference. They expected condolences, perhaps an offer of humanitarian assistance. Nothing more. I looked around the chamber before speaking. History is rarely changed by the strongest fleet. The sentence echoed through the vast hall. Conversation stopped. Even the officers standing beside the tactical displays turned toward me. I continued in the same calm voice. Sometimes the fate of an empire depends on whether one person chooses to save another. No one interrupted. No one seemed to understand. Several delegates exchanged puzzled glances, waiting for an explanation that did not come. I offered neither strategy nor military proposal. I made no recommendation for sanctions or retaliation. Instead, I simply met their confused expressions in silence. The Lyrax ministers studied me with tired eyes, as though searching for a meaning hidden beneath ordinary words. There was one. Whether anyone recognized it remained to be seen. For several long seconds, no one spoke. The silence that followed my words was heavier than the frantic arguments that had filled the chamber only moments before. Then, as if an invisible signal had been given, the delegates began reacting exactly as I expected. The representative of the Fourth Dominion rose first. His species measured power by fleet size alone, and compassion had never held any strategic value in their history. He folded his forearms across his broad chest and looked at me with open disbelief. Empires survive through military power, he declared. History has proven that truth 1,000 times. Several delegates nodded in agreement. A representative from the Charon Collective leaned forward, his pale eyes fixed on me. Compassion does not stop assassins, he said. If the Crimson Dominion has succeeded, the only rational response is overwhelming force. Murmurs of approval spread across the chamber. Another elder diplomat, whose civilization had ruled its sector for nearly 5,000 years, allowed himself a faint smile. Humans still think like idealists. Laughter rippled through the council. Not cruel laughter, dismissive laughter, the kind reserved for someone considered inexperienced rather than dangerous. I had heard it before. Humanity was respected when hospitals needed building, when refugee ships required escort, or when disaster zones demanded volunteers willing to risk their own lives for strangers. We had earned admiration for our courage, but admiration was not the same as influence. To these ancient civilizations, courage belonged to rescuers. Power belonged to empires. Within moments, the discussion returned to military strategy. Holographic maps expanded once more across the chamber. Fleet movements, supply routes, border fortifications, mobilization schedules. Entire sectors were rearranged on glowing tactical displays while billions of lives became numbers and probabilities. No one mentioned Princess Lyra again. Not as a person, only as a political consequence. The Lyrax minister slowly lowered his head, saying nothing. I wondered whether he had noticed what everyone else had missed. They were already speaking of the princess in the past tense, despite the absence of a body. Somewhere beyond these walls, the truth still existed, waiting to be found, while the galaxy argued over what to do after her death. I quietly returned to my seat. There was nothing more to say. The council believed fleets would decide the future. I believed the future might depend on whether someone reached a frozen world before the assassins did. While the Galactic Council argued over treaties and battle plans, I was thousands of light years away from the center of galactic politics. My world was far simpler. On FRO's the N7, survival mattered more than diplomacy, and rescue always came before questions. The frozen planet had earned its name honestly. Endless fields of ice stretched beyond the horizon, broken only by jagged mountain ridges and black forest buried beneath centuries of snow. Temperatures rarely climbed above -60 degrees, and blizzards could erase entire expeditions within minutes. Most species considered the planet uninhabitable. Humans called it another assignment. I had been leading civilian emergency response teams for nearly 8 years. We weren't soldiers. We didn't hunt pirates or chase criminals across the stars. Our job was simple. When someone crashed, got trapped, or sent a distress signal, we went after them. It didn't matter who they were or where they came from. If there was a chance someone was still breathing, we moved. That morning began like every other. I stood inside Rescue Station 12, checking thermal suits while my team prepared 2 heavy transport crawlers for another search operation. Emma was recalibrating our medical scanners. Noah inspected the drone batteries for the 3rd time, refusing to trust factory settings. Miguel argued with our mechanic about replacing a damaged suspension arm before the next storm arrived. It was routine, almost comforting. Outside, the wind screamed against the reinforced walls, throwing frozen crystals across the landing pad like clouds of shattered glass. Frosthaven never stayed quiet for long. Then every alarm in the operations room activated at once. The large holographic display lit up with an emergency trajectory. Unidentified spacecraft entering atmosphere, the computer announced. No military identification, no civilian registry, no emergency transponder. Only a rapidly descending object breaking apart as it fought the planet, this gravity. The impact prediction appeared seconds later, less than 90 kilometers from our station. Close enough that if anyone survived the crash, the cold would kill them long before another rescue team could arrive. I didn't hesitate. Suit up, I ordered, already reaching for my helmet. We got survivors to find. None of us knew that somewhere beyond the storm, another group was racing toward the same crash site. Unlike us, they weren't coming to rescue anyone. The rescue bay exploded into motion the instant the alert sounded. Years of training had made every member of my team react before conscious thought could catch up. Emma sealed the medical packs and loaded portable life support units into the crawler. Noah launched 3 reconnaissance drones through the opening hangar doors despite the blizzard threatening to tear them apart. Miguel climbed beneath the lead vehicle one final time, tightening a loose hydraulic coupling before slamming the access panel shut. I studied the holographic trajectory projected above the operations table. The unidentified craft had entered the atmosphere at an impossible angle. Most ships would have burned apart long before reaching the surface, yet this one had fought to stay intact until the final seconds. Whoever had been flying it hadn't been trying to save the vessel. They had been trying to give its passengers a chance to live. Impact confirmed, Noah called from the sensor station. Northwest Glacier, 86 kilometers. The wreck split into at least 4 major sections. Any distress beacon? He shook his head. Nothing. Emma frowned. No beacon, no registry, no transponder. Either someone was hiding, or someone wanted them impossible to find. Neither possibility changed our mission. I grabbed my insulated helmet and climbed into the driver's seat of the lead crawler. Move. The heavy engines roared to life as both rescue vehicles rolled out into the storm. The moment we cleared the station, its protective shield, Frosthaven reminded us why most civilizations refused to settle here. Wind slammed against the armored hull with hurricane force, reducing visibility to little more than a wall of white. Ice crystals hammered the windshield like thousands of tiny bullets while the crawler's stabilizers fought to keep us from sliding into hidden crevasses beneath the snow. Above us, Noah's drones transmitted fragmented images through the interference. Twisted metal, burning debris, a trail carved across the glacier nearly 2 kilometers long. Then another signal appeared. 3 unidentified ships had entered the planet's atmosphere from high orbit. Their flight path wasn't approaching the wreck. It was intercepting it. I felt my grip tighten on the steering controls. Whoever they were, they weren't responding to an emergency. They already knew exactly where the shuttle had crashed, and they intended to arrive before anyone else. The glacier came into view through the blizzard as a field of twisted metal and burning debris scattered across the endless white. The shuttle had carved a deep trench into the ice before breaking apart, leaving fragments spread over nearly 2 kilometers. Thick black smoke rose into the gray sky, where the wind tore it apart almost as quickly as it formed. I stopped the crawler less than 50 meters from the largest section of the wreckage. Emma, with me. Noah, launch perimeter drones. Miguel, secure the vehicles and keep the engines running, I ordered as I jumped into the snow. The cold hit like a hammer, but my thermal suit absorbed most of it. We moved quickly, climbing over shattered hull plates and exposed support beams that still radiated heat from the violent descent. The interior of the shuttle looked like a battlefield. Emergency lighting flickered weakly through drifting smoke. Broken consoles sparked against crushed bulkheads, and the smell of burning circuitry filled the air. No survivors in the forward compartment, Emma reported. I pushed deeper into the wreckage, squeezing through a collapsed doorway into what had once been the passenger cabin. Most of the seats had been ripped free during the crash. Then my flashlight caught movement beneath a fallen section of the ceiling. Someone was alive. I dropped to my knees and forced the twisted metal aside. Lying beneath it was a young woman wearing a torn white uniform embroidered with silver symbols I had never seen before. Her skin was pale, her breathing shallow, and blood stained the frozen floor beneath her. Even without knowing who she was, I could tell she had only minutes left. "Emma!" I shouted. She hurried over, her medical scanner already active. The display flashed crimson almost immediately. Multiple internal injuries, massive blood loss, spine trauma. She is crashing. Carefully, I lifted the unconscious woman into my arms. She weighed almost nothing. Her head rested against my shoulder as I carried her toward the exit while Emma administered emergency stabilizers. Outside, Noah's voice burst through my communicator. "Ryan, we got company." I looked toward the horizon. 3 dark ships were descending through the storm, their engines burning like crimson stars against the snow-filled sky. They weren't rescue craft. They were coming straight for us, and somehow, deep down, I knew they weren't after the wreckage. They were after the woman I was carrying. The first shots came before the enemy ships even touched the ice. Scarlet energy bolts ripped through the blizzard, striking the glacier only meters behind us. Towers of snow exploded into the air, showering the rescue crawlers with frozen debris. Whoever was attacking wasn't interested in warning shots. They intended to leave no survivors. "Move!" I shouted. Miguel swung the rear door of the crawler open as Emma climbed inside ahead of me, already connecting the unconscious woman to portable life support equipment. I handed her over carefully, refusing to let panic dictate my movements. "She is fading," Emma said, her scanner flashing one critical alert after another. Collapsed lung, multiple organ failures, severe internal bleeding. "Ryan, she shouldn't still be alive." I sealed the hatch just as another blast struck nearby, rocking the entire vehicle. Noah's drones filled the tactical display with images from above. 3 black transports had landed less than 500 meters away. Armored figures poured from them in disciplined formations, advancing through the storm with terrifying precision. "They were heading straight for us," Noah reported, "not searching the crash site. They know exactly what they were after." Miguel accelerated across the glacier, the crawler, his tracks biting deep into the ice. Behind us, the second rescue vehicle laid down smoke canisters and electronic decoys, buying precious seconds as the assassins pursued. Inside the medical compartment, Emma worked desperately. "This stopped the bleeding twice," she muttered. "It keeps starting again." I knelt beside the injured woman and helped stabilize her while Emma prepared another injector. Her skin had become almost translucent, her pulse so weak the scanner struggled to detect it. Then something strange happened. The moment I placed my hand against her shoulder to keep her still, the monitor emitted a sharp tone. Emma frowned. "What did you just do?" "What do you mean?" "The tissue damage." She stared at the display. "It just decreased." I looked at the scanner. One of the deep chest wounds had begun closing. Not quickly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. Emma recalibrated the device. "No. That is impossible." I removed my hand. The regeneration slowed almost immediately. When I touched her again, it resumed. Neither of us spoke. Outside, the assassins continued their relentless pursuit across the frozen wasteland. Inside the crawler, something that defied every law of medicine was quietly unfolding. And none of us yet understood that saving the princess had become only half the mission. The other half was protecting me. We drove through the storm without slowing, but Frosthaven was determined to make every kilometer a battle. The glacier beneath us groaned as fresh cracks spread through the ice, forcing Miguel to weave between widening crevasses while the crawler's suspension fought to stay level. Behind us, flashes of crimson light pierced the blizzard. The assassins were gaining. Emma barely noticed, Her entire attention remained fixed on the unconscious woman lying on the medical platform. "I've never seen anything like this," she whispered, comparing one scan to the next. "Her body is repairing injuries that should be irreversible." I looked down at the princess. Her breathing had become steadier, but only while I remained beside her. Every time I moved away to check our surroundings, the monitors began sounding new warnings. The instant I returned and touched her shoulder or held her hand, the alarms quieted. Emma replayed the recorded data 3 times. "The regeneration ISN, T-random," she said. "It's responding to you." "That was impossible." "I know." She adjusted the scanner again, searching for a malfunction. "There has to be another explanation." Before either of us could say more, Noah's voice crackled through the communication system. "I've intercepted enemy transmissions." The cabin fell silent. They were using an encrypted military channel, but I broke enough of it to translate fragments. "What are they saying?" I asked. A pause. They identified the survivor. Another pause followed, longer this time. They recalling her Princess Lyra Ashen. I stared at the woman beside me, the missing heir to the Lyrax Empire. The entire galaxy believed she was dead. Emma slowly lowered her scanner. "Oh, my God," Noah continued. "There's more." His voice sounded different now. "Uneasy. They changed their mission orders." "What do you mean?" "The original command was to eliminate the princess." He hesitated. "The new command is to capture the human alive." A cold silence settled inside the crawler. None of us understood why. Emma looked from the scanner to my hand resting against Lyra. Their medical officers must have seen the same thing we did. The realization struck us all at once. They weren't chasing us because she had survived. They were chasing us because they had discovered something even more valuable. Whatever was happening between the princess and me, the Crimson Dominion wanted it, and they were willing to kill everyone else on Frosthaven to possess it. The chase lasted through the entire night. Frosthaven, this endless blizzard, became our only ally, hiding the rescue convoy from enemy sensors just long enough to stay ahead. Even so, the Crimson Dominion refused to abandon the pursuit. Their ships swept across the frozen wilderness in widening search patterns while assault teams followed our tracks across the glacier. They weren't trying to destroy us anymore. They wanted us alive, especially me. Emma spent every spare moment studying the medical data. Every new scan only deepened the mystery. "It ISN to healing technology," she said quietly. "It ISN to nanotechnology or an energy field. It is biological." I glanced at Princess Lyra, who still hadn't regained consciousness. "What does that mean?" "It means her own body is healing itself." She enlarged the latest scan. "The regeneration begins only after direct physical contact with you. It accelerates while contact is maintained. The moment you let go, the process slows almost to nothing." I stared at the impossible images on the display. Broken bones had nearly fused. Internal bleeding had almost stopped. Damaged organs were rebuilding themselves cell by cell. I tested every variable, Emma continued. Temperature, medication, oxygen levels, radiation exposure. "None of them matter." She looked directly at me. "You matter." Noah interrupted before I could answer. They transmitted our medical data through an encrypted emergency channel." "To who?" "The nearest Galactic Council evacuation outpost." Within minutes, a reply arrived. It wasn't from military command. It came from the Council's scientific directorate. The message contained only one sentence. "Continue physical contact immediately. Do not separate the human from the Lyrax subject under any circumstances." A second transmission followed almost instantly. This one carried the highest scientific priority. Historical genetic records indicate an undocumented biological resonance between specific human DNA markers and the Lyrax royal genome. No verified cases have ever been observed. Preserve both individuals at all costs. The cabin fell silent. Emma slowly lowered the data tablet. "This ISN to an accident." "No, it's something that existed long before either of you were born." Outside, another explosion shook the crawler as enemy fire struck the ice. Miguel fought the controls while warning alarms echoed through the vehicle. We were 20 minutes from the Council evacuation outpost. The Dominion had nearly surrounded us. Ahead lay our only chance. Behind us came an army willing to ignite an interstellar war just to capture 2 living people. And somewhere beyond the storm, the entire galaxy was about to witness the impossible. The Council evacuation outpost emerged from the storm like a fortress carved into the glacier. Massive shield generators surrounded the landing platforms, while dozens of rescue ships and military transports crowded the frozen valley. Emergency broadcasts had already spread news that an unidentified survivor from the Lyrax diplomatic shuttle was approaching. No one expected the survivor to be the missing Imperial princess herself. The moment our crawler crossed the outer security barrier, medical teams rushed toward us. Soldiers established a defensive perimeter as council officials hurried across the landing field. Behind them floated dozens of media drones, broadcasting the rescue live across inhabited space. I climbed from the vehicle carrying Lyra in my arms. The crowd fell silent. The Lyrax minister, who had arrived only minutes earlier aboard an Imperial cruiser, froze as he recognized her face. "Your Highness," his voice broke. "She is alive." A wave of disbelief swept through everyone present. Doctors immediately transferred Lyra onto an advanced medical platform while Emma explained everything we had discovered during the escape. Scientists crowded around the diagnostic displays, comparing readings faster than the computers could process them. One elderly xenobiologist suddenly looked at me. "Stay beside her," he ordered. I wasn't planning to leave. Before anyone could say another word, every warning siren inside the outpost began screaming. The attack came without hesitation. 3 Crimson Dominion strike ships burst through the blizzard, ignoring the defensive batteries as they descended directly toward the landing field. Their troops poured from assault craft before the ships had even touched the ice, firing indiscriminately into soldiers and civilians alike. Energy blasts illuminated the snow. Explosions shook the entire outpost. Council security forces returned fire, but the assassins pushed forward with only one objective: reach the princess. The medical team rushed Lyra toward the evacuation shuttle, but a crimson bolt tore through the chaos before anyone could react. It struck her squarely in the chest. Time seemed to stop. The monitors flatlined instantly. Doctors screamed for emergency equipment. The Lyrax minister collapsed to his knees. Across the galaxy, billions watched the live broadcast as Princess Lyra Ashen died only moments after being found alive. I dropped beside her without thinking. Someone pulled at my shoulder. Someone shouted that it was over. I ignored them all. I took her lifeless hand in mine and refused to let go. I heard voices around me, but none of them seemed real. Medics shouted orders while Princess Lyra lay motionless in my arms. The monitors beside her emitted one long, unbroken tone. According to every instrument surrounding us, she was gone. Then I felt warmth beneath my hands. At first, it was only a faint glow where our skin touched. Within seconds, golden light spread across Lyra's body, growing brighter until it illuminated the entire landing platform. Scientists stepped back in disbelief as their scanners registered impossible readings. Damaged tissue regenerated before their eyes. The fatal wound in her chest closed completely. Moments later, the continuous tone stopped. Her heart beat once. Then again, Princess Lyra opened her eyes. Absolute silence fell over the battlefield. Soldiers lowered their weapons. Doctors forgot to breathe. Even the Crimson Dominion assassins stood frozen as billions across the galaxy watched the impossible unfold through live broadcasts. The recording spread to every inhabited world within minutes. Scientists replayed the footage countless times, searching for an explanation. Days later, the Galactic Scientific Directorate confirmed an unprecedented biological interaction between rare human genetic markers and the Lyrax royal bloodline, capable of triggering extraordinary cellular regeneration. Everything they believed about medicine, genetics, and even death itself had to be reconsidered. The Crimson Dominion lost the support of governments that had secretly aided its campaign. More importantly, humanity was never viewed the same way again. We were no longer remembered only as a young civilization known for rescue missions. From that day forward, Earth became known as the species that had changed the destiny of an empire, not through conquest, but by saving a single life. The galaxy changed after that day. Princess Lyra recovered completely and, within months, ascended to the imperial throne, ending every claim that could have plunged the Lyrax Empire into civil war. Deprived of its greatest victory, the Crimson Dominion lost its allies, its funding, and eventually its influence. One hidden cell after another was uncovered until the organization collapsed into history. Before the Imperial Court, Empress Lyra offered Earth unrestricted access to Lyrax technology, military alliances, and a fortune beyond imagination. Our ambassador thanked her with a respectful bow before quietly replying, "Saving a life should never become a business transaction." The word spread across the galaxy almost as quickly as the recording of Lyra's resurrection. As for me, I declined every interview and every medal. I returned to FROS to VN7, where distress beacons still mattered more than politics. There were always more lives waiting to be saved. Centuries later, an Arkan historian closed his chronicle with words every student in the galaxy would eventually memorize. We measured humanity by its fleets. We measured humanity by its weapons. We measured humanity by its technology. We measured the wrong things. One day, an alien princess was dying in a human's arms. Then the impossible happened before the eyes of the entire galaxy. That was the day we discovered humanity's greatest strength was never power. It was the willingness to save a stranger, no matter the cost.